Hello folks, welcome back to the Mountain Takes with a new story. An avalanche on Annapurna isn't rare. The mountain drops snow constantly, but on May 13th, 2013, an avalanche happened at exactly the wrong moment, in exactly the wrong place, with exactly the right conditions to kill people who were doing everything right. This is what happens when timing and mountains align against you. Sit tight, because now I'm going to explain what actually happened. It was May 12, 2013, on Mount Annapurna in Nepal. The mountain sits at 8,091 meters and has the highest fatality to summit ratio of any 8,000er, approximately 1 in 3 climbers who summit do not return alive. The season had started slowly, spring conditions had been unstable, snow had been heavy, the weather forecasts had been unreliable. But by May 12, a weather window had opened. The forecast showed clear skies for approximately 48 hours. Multiple expeditions, who had been waiting for weeks for conditions to improve, made the decision to push for the summit simultaneously. At base camp, there were climbers from various nationalities, various expedition companies, various skill levels. Some were professional mountaineers, some were experienced amateurs, some were wealthy clients who had paid expedition operators significant fees for the privilege of attempting Annapurna. The planning began immediately. Teams would leave for the higher camps that day. They would climb through the night. They would summit on May 13th. They would descend on May 13th or 14th. The plan was aggressive, but the window seemed real. The climbers began moving up the mountain. The route to Annapurna's summit follows the north face, a route that is technically challenging and constantly threatened by avalanches, seracs, and unpredictable weather. The climbers fixed ropes. They established their route. They moved methodically upward through the afternoon and into the evening of May 12th. By nightfall, multiple teams were climbing. Simultaneously on the same route, approximately 20 climbers from different expeditions were above Camp 2 on the night of May 12th, 1-3, all pushing toward a summit attempt. The teams were spread across different sections of the route, but all heading in the same direction, all racing against the weather window, all dependent on the same forecast that promised clear skies and good conditions. The weather forecast was wrong. During the night of May 12th, 1-3, conditions changed. A weather system that had not been fully predicted by the forecasters moved in from the south. Snow began falling. The wind increased. By dawn on May 13th, visibility had dropped significantly. The promised clear skies never materialized. Instead, climbers woke to storm conditions, heavy snow, strong wind, reduced visibility, the exact opposite of what they had been promised. Multiple teams made the decision to push ahead anyway. They had invested weeks at altitude. They had invested significant money. They had invested emotional energy in the attempt. Turning around now, after climbing through the night, seemed unacceptable to many climbers, so they continued upward, moving through worsening conditions, pushing toward a summit they could not yet see. By 10 a.m. on May 13th, climbers were spreading across the upper sections of the north face. Some had reached approximately 7,800 meters. Some were still lower. All were in storm condition. The snow was falling heavily. The wind was pushing 40 kilometers per hour. The visibility was poor, and the conditions were getting progressively worse, not better. At approximately 11:30 a.m., on a section of the route between 7,600 and 7,900 meters, an avalanche began. The heavy new snow that had fallen during the night had accumulated on the steep north face. The wind had loaded it unevenly, creating unstable slabs. The exact trigger, whether it was a climber's passage, whether it was natural failure of the snow structure, whether it was a combination of factors, was never definitively determined, but the result was clear. A large slab of snow began to slide. The avalanche swept through the route where climbers were positioned. It carried climbers downslope. It buried others in place. It destroyed the fixed ropes that climbers were depending on for safety. The slide continued for approximately 200 meters before the snow decelerated and stopped, leaving climbers scattered across the debris field, some injured, some buried, some killed instantly. The time the avalanche stopped, 4 climbers were dead. Their names were Fiona Kabusenge, a Ugandan mountaineer, Shin Kazuhiro, a Japanese climber, and 2 others whose identities took longer to confirm. Multiple other climbers were injured. The route was completely compromised. The fixed ropes that climbers needed to descend safely were destroyed or buried. The survivors faced an impossible situation. They were above 7,600 meters. The weather was worsening, not improving. The route was damaged, and there were injured climbers who needed assistance. Some teams began an immediate descent, moving quickly down the mountain, helping injured climbers as best they could. Other climbers, recognizing that descent was becoming increasingly dangerous, sheltered in place, waiting for conditions to improve. One of the survivors, a climber named Tamara Lunger, an Italian mountaineer, was injured in the avalanche, but remained mobile. She helped other injured climbers. She coordinated with other teams on the mountain. She became part of the informal rescue effort that emerged from the chaos of the accident. Her actions and the actions of other experienced mountaineers on the route likely prevented additional deaths by helping injured climbers descend, or by providing shelter and support at high altitude. By May 14th, the weather had improved enough for a rescue helicopter to operate. The helicopter was able to reach the area and evacuate some of the most seriously injured climbers. By May 15th, most of the surviving climbers had descended to lower camps. The avalanche that had seemed like a catastrophic isolated event had killed 4 climbers, injured multiple others, and brought the season's climbing to a halt. The investigation that followed determined that the avalanche had been triggered by the combination of heavy new snow and wind loading. The forecast that had promised clear skies had been significantly inaccurate. The decision by multiple teams to push for the summit, despite worsening conditions, had placed climbers in the path of an avalanche that was nearly impossible to predict or prevent. What made the May 2013 Annapurna avalanche significant was not just the death toll, though 4 deaths in a single event is substantial. What made it significant was that it demonstrated how rapidly mountains can change their minds, how a weather forecast that seems reliable at base camp can become completely wrong at altitude, how the decision to push forward made by experienced climbers with valid reasons can result in catastrophe. The 4 climbers who died, Fiona Kabusenge, Shin Kazuhiro, and 2 others, were skilled mountaineers. They were not reckless. They were not inexperienced. They were climbers who understood mountains and who made a reasonable decision based on available information. And the mountain changed the conditions anyway. If you've ever wondered what happens when mountains change their minds mid-climb, if you've ever questioned whether experience and skill can protect you when nature decides differently, subscribe, because there are more stories of mountains that teach lessons at the cost of lives.
Yeah.